So you just started a new job, and maybe it's even your first in IT, and you're wondering what skill is going to be most beneficial to making the biggest impact in your new environment. There's one skill that's incredibly underrated, and it's probably something that you've not even thought about, and it's applicable across every field in IT. So go grab a snack, hit pause on Netflix. You wrapped up Tiger King a few weeks ago anyway, and we'll discuss what this one underrated skill is. Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here with another CyberInsight video. Thanks for coming back to the channel and making it your new spot for cyber and network knowledge. Today, I'm going to tell you about, at least in my opinion, what is the most underrated skill in all of IT. And like I said, it goes across all fields in IT. It's something that's highly needed, but for some reason, not very appreciated. I know what you're initially thinking. You think that I'm going to say networking, because that's something that I'm really passionate about and I like to talk about a lot. Nope. Okay, so if it's not networking, how about coding and software development? That's something that could be used everywhere. Negative. All right, so if it's not networking and it's not coding, well, the cloud is really a big thing now. Everybody talks about moving everything off-prem into the cloud, and we have all sorts of different types of information with Amazon and Azure and Google, all sorts of different things. So maybe that's something that's an underrated skill that could be used everywhere. No, the cloud is really good, but it isn't what I'm talking about today. So in my mind, the most underrated skill that's applicable across every single field in IT, but no one wants to do it, people don't talk about it a lot, it's not seen as a technical skill, that is documentation. So before you end my video and move on to the next one or go back to Netflix or whatever it is that you want to do, hear me out, okay? Because I'm going to lay out for you a few reasons why this is a skill that's highly needed, underappreciated, and can really have a tremendous impact on your career going forward. So we'll get right into it. Make sure you do hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell, especially if you do like the content. That way you don't miss out whenever I drop any new videos. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to talk about 3 different reasons why I think that getting involved in documentation is really going to help you, especially at the beginning of your career, and ingrain yourself into organization and make yourself a critical asset to all of those around you. And on top of those 3 reasons, I'm also going to give you some examples of different types of documentation that are applicable independent of whatever the specific IT specialty is that you're in. So reason number 1, it is the fastest way to learn technology and processes within an environment. You're brand new, you just showed up, you don't know anything, you want to get involved, you want to show value. Documentation is something that is always needed and is in a continual state of needing to be created and updated. But a lot of people don't like doing it, or there's not enough time and resources to really put into getting the right documentation done. So if you really jump into it right from the beginning, you're going to be making yourself known to a lot of different key stakeholders in your department and maybe other departments that you're required to interact with. You're going to be going on fact-finding missions to get the ground truth on what a technology does, or the processes that need to be in place for teams to implement or operationalize certain types of things. And in going down that path and doing that, you're going to make yourself known to different people right off the bat. You're also going to be bringing with you a fresh perspective. You're new to the organization. You might even be new to IT in general. So while that might mean that you're behind the learning curve a little bit, what that also means is your mindset isn't completely ingrained in the way that things have to be within an organization. So you might come in and you might see a way that things are supposed to be happening, or the way that things have been happening for a certain period of time, and you're going to document that process or those tools. But in your process of discovery of that information, you might find things that are incompatible or don't make sense. And since you're learning those things for the first time, you might be able to point those things out and maybe identify other ways that make a little bit more sense to be doing those things. Also, with being new to IT, if you're coming in at a entry level or junior level position, that means that the documentation that you're going to be writing, you're going to be writing it from your perspective, which in all honesty probably is going to make a little bit more sense than the senior folks who've been around forever and take certain things for granted. You're going to put into your documentation things that would be helpful to you, starting from the position that you're in, that oftentimes are overlooked by senior folks who just overlook certain steps or take certain pieces of information for granted. So the second thing with you jumping in and offering to help out with documentation is that you're really going to be taking a large burden off of the staff that's already there that should be doing and maintaining documentation in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to take over somebody's job if they have the job of doing the documentation, but realistically, from an engineering perspective or development perspective or a cyber perspective, there's always things that need to be updated. There's always new tools that come out. There's always additions to environments that need to be articulated and documented in the proper way. And honestly, in a lot of places, the documentation just isn't the top priority when weighed against ensuring that the environment is secure or maintaining the operational capability within an environment. So by you coming in and offering to help out with authoring documentation or updating documentation, you're really showing right off the bat that you are a team player, you're willing to support people. It also makes you look like you have a better understanding overall of the needs of an organization and understand the importance of documentation. The third thing, and this is really key for folks who are new to an organization, is it's really going to demonstrate that you are an integral part of the process. And I mean that because if you're going around and interviewing people or data gathering, making different types of connections with different stakeholders, starting to author different types of documentation, you're kind of inserting yourself into various processes within your organization. If your documentation is good and it's reliable, people are going to want to bring you in on things to make sure that the documentation is done correctly and reliably. The secondary benefit of that is that you're really getting the best on-the-job training that you possibly can get by all of this data gathering that you're doing. And furthermore, you're demonstrating your understanding of these different technologies and processes. Folks in the organization will take notice of the fact that you're the person who can take all these abstract bits of data, understand overall processes, have a good feeling for how different technologies work with each other depending on the type of documentation that you're authoring. And what that will do is in the future, it will make you be seen as an integral part and someone who they want to put and give greater responsibility and roles to for other projects. So that's all great, but what exactly is some of the documentation that might make sense for you to jump into when you get to a new organization? Well, that's going to really depend on what the drivers are behind the need for certain documentation in different environments. In some cases, you have some type of governance requirements for having certain types of documents. On the other hand, it just might be an operational need as far as increasing the maturity and repeatability of processes within your environment. So some examples that might make sense to take a look at and see if they need to be updated or improved, or maybe they aren't even created and it's something that you could jump into. Standard operating procedures is definitely one right off the bat that is really critical to operations within an environment. These are documents that try to create a repeatable process that can be followed depending upon what type of task or tools that might be used within the environment. So that could be something from account management, SOPs, to installing or upgrading software in an environment, to the configuration management process. Really, there's a whole bunch of different options there, and just asking, what are the things here in the environment that we do a lot that we don't have documentation for that would make everyone's job be easier and improve the reliability and make it more repeatable. A less technical type of documentation might be some policies. Maybe you need some type of policy that dictates acceptable use for accounts within your environment. Or maybe you need some type of policy dealing with people bringing their own devices into your environment and connecting to the network. There's always a need for policies. There's always a need for policies to be updated. This is a really easy place to start where it's not necessarily going to be overly technical, but you can show some real value with authoring policies that might be applicable to the IT teams, or they could be policies that are applicable to general users. Another type of documentation that's really important, and in some environments, it might be so big that you wouldn't necessarily do this manually, but in smaller environments, it could be something that's needed, and that is asset lists. So documenting what devices you have, their IP address, their host names, what subnets they're in, what VLANs they're in, things like that. That's actually a great way to kind of get a feeling and understanding for the environments or the layout of the environment that you're in. It's also something that is beneficial to have, and maybe compare it to some automated means that you have within your environment. So maybe your vulnerability scanners and things like that. And it's also useful both to IT teams and your InfoSec teams. Kind of building on top of that, and something that is equally valuable, and one of my favorite things that I think from a security perspective is really great to wrap your mind around and understand, and that is data flows. What devices are allowed to talk over what ports to different devices in your environment, internally and externally, breaking that down into different security zones. I mean, you're starting to get a little bit more into network architecture and security architecture, but if you don't have an understanding of what is permitted communication-wise in your environment, that's a really, really big blind spot that you probably need to figure out. And so if you're a little bit more on the technical side, this might be some great documentation. This would be the best way to learn the layout of a network environment, and it will be highly appreciated because it's something that a lot of environments don't do. So two other types of documents that are really beneficial might depend upon the specific environment that you're in and whether or not you have some direct governance that requires these, and that is system security plans and design documents. Normally for folks that are working in a government environment or a DoD environment, a lot of times whenever you're building out a new system, there are certain high-level documents that need to be authored that go into the accreditation package that document the overall configuration layout of your environment, and really are very, very multifaceted. It's a great document. It's probably, as far as understanding the most of how everything interacts with each other from a security perspective and an IT perspective, authoring an SSP is a really important and integral part to maintaining the security compliance of your environment. Now, you as a new person probably are not gonna just jump right into authoring an SSP by yourself, but it might be something where an SSP or design document needs to have updates. I'm sure that the people that are actually responsible for writing the SSPs and design documents would love to have any type of help that they could get. Even if you can't help them out with doing updates and stuff like that, if you can get your hands on a copy of those types of documents, that's probably one of the first places that I would go in a new environment to understand what exists within the environment and how it all interrelates with each other. So there we have it, documentation. People often see it as a soft skill. A lot of people don't like to do it, but if you can get the opportunity to start taking some of that on your plate and doing that, it's going to make you an integral part of your organization. It's going to give you the fast track of gaining knowledge about how things work within your environment. It's also going to improve you as a person, because you don't want to just get into IT and be siloed into, I only do networking and I just type away here, and not really have a understanding of how to improve your communication skills. You always want to be trying to improve your communication skills, whether those are speaking skills or writing skills. Being able to collect data from different points, put them together, and make it understandable to folks who don't have necessarily the intrinsic knowledge of an environment, or folks who aren't even on the IT staff. There's a real skill in being able to take that information and bring it together and make it easily understandable by folks who maybe aren't the most technical. So it's something that will go a long way in your career. You might even start to enjoy documentation, possibly. But you'll definitely be better and better at it the more and more you do it. I think it also, from the technical side, it kind of gives you a little bit of a better purview of how everything kind of comes together, and can make you a better admin or engineer or developer, just having a better understanding of how everything works together and how people view different things within the organization. So I hope that's useful to you. I hope that you take this advice whenever you go to a new organization, a new job, and really try to help out and expand your skill sets and expand your knowledge by offering to help out with writing documentation or updating documentation, or even asking for documentation, right? I mean, even if it's something where you don't necessarily need to help out with it, at least if you're asking for it, you're going to be getting a lot more information that you can ingest and ask the right questions to other people, which again will make you more valuable within the environment. So as always, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Leave me any comments down below. Love to hear any feedback from you, maybe some other topics that you want me to cover. I do have some new equipment that's showing up to the lab that I'm going to do some videos on. Also getting the new Hack5 key croc device for penetration testing. They're sending it to me, so I'm going to do a review on that. I think that would be pretty cool. All right, so take care of yourself, stay healthy, wash your hands, don't do anything crazy. Keep getting after it. Look forward to talking to you soon. All right, take care.